No. No, get the hell away from me, man. What the hell? Uh, oh, holy shit. Oh, God, what a goddamn dream. What the hell is that?
We're not through here, bitch.
A dream within a dream? What the hell is this, Nightmare on Elm Street? Channel. I hope everyone is doing well out there. And today we're going to talk about one of the big ones. One of the big ones in horror history. And that movie is A Nightmare on Elm Street. This film was released November 16th of 1984. It's rated R. It's an hour and 31 minutes long. Had a budget of $1.8 million. And upon release it made $25.5 million, which was a huge hit for Wes Craven, who wrote and directed this film, and for Bob Shaye and New Line, because they needed this to be a hit, because if it wasn't, they were going to go bankrupt. Now, Wes Craven hit the scene in 1972 with a little exploitation film called The Last House on the Left, which Sean Cunningham produced that film. Wes Craven and Sean Cunningham were good friends. What Sean Cunningham went on to do in Friday the 13th. Now, Wes Craven parlayed the controversy and success off of Last House on the Left and did in 1977 The Hills Have Eyes, which also sparked a little bit of controversy and was a little bit of a hit for Wes Craven as well. Now, sadly, until Nightmare on Elm Street, he had a string of misses. In 1981, he did a movie called Deadly Blessing, which didn't do that very well. Swamp Thing in 82, which has become a cult favorite now, but back then it didn't do a whole lot. And then he released The Hills Have Eyes Part 2 in 84, and that movie wasn't well received either. And honestly, it's not that good of a film, although it's been a long time since I've seen it. And then this movie came out and was a huge hit for Wes Craven and Bob Shaye. Now, Wes Craven wrote the script originally in 81. He got the idea from some newspaper articles that were run in LA at the time about this teenager in Asia that was having really bad nightmares, and he refused to sleep. And his father was a doctor and prescribed him sleeping pills to help him sleep, but he went for like 7 or 9 days without sleeping. And then finally one night, he fell asleep, and his family was thankful. Finally, he was going to get some rest, so they took him to his bed, turned off the lights, and went to sleep. Well, in the middle of the night, this young man woke up screaming, and by the time his parents got to him, he went silent, and they found him dead in his bed. Don't know why, but his parents found the sleeping pills. He never took them. He was putting them underneath his mattress, and they found a coffee maker in his closet, a lot like Nancy Thompson in this film. That gave Wes Craven an idea about somebody stalking you in your dreams, which is a very intimate thing. A lot of people consider their bedroom very safe, but it's also an intimate place, and this guy is stalking you in your dreams, knows all your thoughts, stalking you when you're most vulnerable while you're sleeping in your bedroom. And like I said, he wrote the script in 81. Finally, Bob Shaye said, okay, let's make this film. And Bob Shaye raised the money, but he needed this to be a hit or New Line was going to go bankrupt. This is only the secondly produced film by New Line. The first one was Alone in the Dark, which came out in 82. And that movie was directed by Jack Scholler, and there was Jack Palance is in that film, Donald Pleasance, Martin Landau, Dwight Schultz from A-Team fame. It did okay at the box office. It wasn't a huge hit. And I only reason I mentioned Jack Scholler directing that because Jack Scholler directed the sequel to this film, Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge. So when they started casting this film, a lot of young actresses and actors, obviously, a lot of people not a lot of experience. Helen Langenkamp came in to play Nancy Thompson. Johnny Depp in his first film role as Glenn, Nancy's boyfriend. The great John Saxon as Lieutenant Thompson, or Nancy's father. Robert Englund, the great Robert Englund as Fred Krueger, or Freddy Krueger, which Wes Craven almost just gave that role to a stuntman, but then he realized that he needed an actor for that role, and Robert Englund came in. Wes Craven really liked him. Robert Englund was coming off of V, the miniseries, and the rest is horror history. Lynn Shaye's in this film as the teacher in that one nightmare scene where Nancy sees her dead friend Tina in the body bag going down the hallway. And Lynn Shaye's been in a lot of horror films over years, and she's Bob Shaye's sister. And Joseph Whipp's in this film, and you're probably asking, why the hell you even mentioning him? Who the hell is Joseph Whipp? Well, he plays Sergeant Parker in this film, one of the police officers that works under Nancy's father in his police department in his town. But he also came back and played the sheriff in Scream. And that's the only reason I bring that up. I thought it was cool that Wes Craven brought him back in 96 to play the sheriff in Scream. So yes, if you're a horror fan, you've probably seen Joseph Whipp in at least 2 films. This film and Scream. He was also in a film called Suicide Kings 2. Dennis Leary beats the shit out of him because he found out that he was beating his daughter. That's neither here nor there, though. Now, armed with a $1.8 million budget, which Bob Shaye had to scrap to get, they went to work on this production. Now, in the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Tina. They almost make you believe that Tina is the main character of this film. Nancy really is, we find out very shortly. And Tina's having this nightmare in this boiler room, and she's being stalked by this shadowed figure with a glove with knives on it, red and green sweater, burned face, and a hat. She wakes up the next day at school. She's best friends with Nancy. She tells Nancy about this dream. Well, here Nancy's having a dream about the same guy. They think that's odd, and Glenn even kind of laughs it off, like, how you can't be dreaming about the same guy? It's impossible. Well, Tina's mom goes out of town, so she asks Nancy Glenn to sleep over because she's not feeling comfortable in her own house because of the dream she's been having. Well, her boyfriend also crashes, and her boyfriend's kind of like the bad boy to school, gets in trouble a lot, wears a leather jacket, doesn't have the most eloquent way of speaking, and they go to bed, and in the middle of the night, Tina starts having a bad dream. And she starts thrashing and screaming in bed. And Rod, her boyfriend, gets up and he feels helpless. He doesn't know what's going on. And all of a sudden, 4 claw marks go down her chest and blood starts spurting everywhere. And she starts getting dragged around the top of the ceiling, screaming bloody murder, blood everywhere. And finally, she crashes on the bed. And Rod's like, what the hell? And he takes off because he thinks he's going to get blamed for it because he doesn't have the best reputation in town, especially with the police department. Soon after this, the police catch Rod. And they think he did it, although Nancy's not so sure because her dreams start getting even more and more vivid with this Fred Krueger guy. And she starts telling her mom about it, and her mom's kind of like dismissive of it. Her father's dismissive of it. And her mother and father's relationship's not the greatest. Her mom's like an alcoholic, and her dad's always working. So they're not really there for her. Her mom tries to be there for her, but it's just not a great scenario. Eventually, now we have the nightmare sequence at the school, which is awesome. It's a great nightmare sequence. It's very creepy and ominous, especially when I was a kid. When I saw this movie the first time, I was probably 7 or 8, scared the shit out of me. And then finally, her mom confesses to Nancy about who Fred Krueger was. And she tells her that he was a child murderer. Now, in the script originally, he was a child molester and a child murderer, but they kind of toned that down because at the time there was a big story in the news about this group of people. I think it was this private school where the teachers and the principal and that got arrested for molesting the kids there. So they kind of toned that back, but in a remake they bring that back to the forefront, the molestation part of it. But she tells her about he was a child murderer in town. He killed like 10 or 12 kids. So the town's parents took revenge and burned them and killed them. And her mom even has the glove down in the boiler, which, why would you hold on to that? I don't know why. Because that would tie you to the crime, but we're not meant to think about that part of it all that much. And this is supposed to make Nancy feel better, but she's like, he's coming after me now in my dreams. And her mom's like, that's impossible. So she has this idea about bringing Fred Krueger out into the real world, and she tries to get her boyfriend in on it, and Glenn agrees because he loves her. But Glenn falls asleep when he wasn't supposed to and gets dragged down into bed in that famous scene with the bed spurts blood all over the ceiling. And how they did that was the same way they did Tina on the ceiling. They built a room on a gimbal, and everything was anchored upside down, and the bed was up here, and there was a hole, and they just dumped a big jug of fake blood down. That's how they got that effect to work. Very simple. The gimbal part's not simplistic, but the whole effect itself is pretty simple to pull off. Matter of fact, I think there's like 80 mechanical effects in this film. For a movie that's only an hour and 31 minutes long with a budget at $1.8 million, they did a lot with very little on this film. They got very inventive, and this film is very inventive, especially at the time. This was pretty inventive stuff that was going on in this film, especially in a horror film, because by that point, 84, we had the slasher craze in full bloom. Friday the 13th, My Bloody Valentine, Terror Train, Prom Night. We can go on and on. So this was a little bit, this is a slasher film for sure, but it's a little bit, there's a lot of differences here. This is a lot more creative than most slasher films. And you gotta give it to Wes Craven, he had a great idea. Now this movie was shot in 32 days. Oh, by the way, back to the plot, what am I doing here? I'm jumping ahead. Glenn gets killed, Nancy pulls Fred Krueger out of her dreams, and she set these traps in her house for him. She sets them on fire, and then Fred Krueger at the end takes her mom, I guess, down to hell. It's supposed to be on the bed. And at the end, Nancy turns her back on Fred Krueger and says, I'm taking all my power away from you. She starts walking away from him, and he disappears. And then we get that ending where Nancy walks outside. All of her friends are alive. Her mom's still alive. It's a bright, sunny day. She gets in the car with her friends. The hood slams shut in the car, and the hood's colored like Fred Krueger's sweater, and her mom gets sucked through the door. And then we see that shot of the little girls singing the song Jumpin' Rope, and that's the end of Nightmare on Elm Street. And that was not the original ending of this film. Wes Craven's original ending was Nancy walks out, it's a bright sunny day, she sees all of her friends alive, she gets in the car and takes off. And I think the last shot was going to be the little girls jumping rope. Bob Shaye did not like that. Some people say Bob Shaye wanted a hook so they could do a sequel. Bob Shaye says that's not true. Who the hell knows? But it was his idea to put more at the end in the car. Matter of fact, if you watch the documentary Never Sleep Again, it's on YouTube for free. It's like 4 hours long. It goes through each episode, each movie in the series. And they even show some of the alternate footage. It was a scene where in the car where Nancy gets in the car, she turns, Glenn's not there anymore, and it's Freddy driving the car and they take off. And then her mom gets sucked through the window. The ending is kind of an amalgamation of all the cuts of those endings they shot, minus the Freddy part. The ending's okay. The mom getting through the door, especially in high def, that dummy looks like shit, even though it happens so fast. But that doesn't negate the fact this is still a classic horror film. Now, this film was shot in 32 days, like I was saying before. New Line needed this to be a hit or they were going to go bankrupt. Bob Shaye banked everything on this film. He wanted to start getting into producing movies more and more, and he thought this was his shot to do it. It took 3 hours to get Robert Englund into his makeup, and he said at the end of the day when he was walking off set, he would just start ripping it off and throwing it on the floor, and somebody would be coming up behind him picking up all the pieces to give to the special makeup effects guy. Robert Shaye and Wes Craven didn't get along. They butted heads a lot during the production of this film. The scene where Nancy goes up the steps and her feet are like getting in quicksand going up the steps, that was Bob Shaye's idea, and Wes Craven let him direct that because he kept harping on this scene. He wanted it in the film. Wes Craven was like, whatever, you direct that scene. And then at the ending, they had big arguments over the ending. And Bob Shaye was, towards the end of production actually, Sean Cunningham was visiting the set because him and Wes Craven were friends. And I never knew this. But Bob Shaye was getting on Wes Craven, we gotta hurry, we're running out of money, we're running out of time. So Sean Cunningham went to Wes and said, look, I'm here, give me some stuff to go shoot, I'll go shoot second unit. So Sean Cunningham, towards the end of production, actually went and got a little crew together and went and shot some second unit stuff. And I didn't know this, Wes Craven actually shot some second unit stuff on Friday the 13th. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing. Overall, though, this is still a classic film. Yes, some of the effects look a little dated, especially in high definition. They don't hold up quite as well. But this was a very ambitious film for a $1.8 million budget. You got to give them that. I mean, they were trying to do things that were never done before, especially on that low a budget in a horror film. So I got to give them props for being super creative. And this was a very original idea at the time. Now, obviously, they made 7, well, minus Freddy vs. Jason in the remake. And some of the films I like more than others. We'll get into those as we go down the line. Some of the sequels I haven't seen in over a decade, so I don't know. I didn't like them before, but maybe I'll change. I don't know. We'll see. I'm putting fresh eyes on them for the first time in a long time, but we'll see. But for the original film, I would give this a 9 out of 10. This is definitely a horror classic. It's not my favorite horror series. Halloween is my favorite horror series, but my buddy Rich loves Nightmare on Elm Street. He loves himself some Nightmare on Elm Street, so 9 out of 10 for Nightmare on Elm Street. What are your thoughts on this original film, this classic original film from this series that's been going on for decades now? Leave a comment down below, let me know. I'll be back later in the week with a Van Damme film, another Van Damme film, Nowhere to Run. I'm going to watch that and have a review out later in the week. The next week we'll get back to Nightmare on Elm Street with part 2 and maybe part 3. Maybe we'll do 2 reviews next week in this series. We're going to do each episode, each entry in the series, except for Freddy vs. Jason. I already did that one. You can see that one, just scroll on down, you'll find that review too. But I hope everyone's doing well out there. I'm just going to leave you with bye.